everyone.
Hi.
Yes, we should let everyone in on our little conversation.
Yes, sorry it's taking us so long to join. It's just that all of us have been traveling and with a lot of things once we're back home. It's been a lot. And COVID is back and there are many weird viruses also in the air. So it's also we're beginning to start going into scary times.
So you got COVID for the first time ever, Emilia. How was it?
It was horrible. I mean, I thought it would be super worse, but I think given that it was the first time, it was really, really bad. But I've heard of people who's get into a really, really bad shape, and I was just really navigating, just being in bed, So it was a bit um, shorter also than I thought. It lasted like 3 days
Ah, but you're fully recovered now.
fully.
That's good to hear, no? So at least you will have some immunization, some immunity for for who knows how long, no?
Let me get my earphones.
Is it better?
Um, yes, and especially because I got sick attending the Degrowth conference in Spain, and then I had a week off. Well, not off, but a week,
A
and
week
then
sick.
I went to HLPF in New York, and the hot was super tough. It was super humid. I could barely walk in that heat. So it was basically my attendance to HLPF was really blurred. I don't know what I
Mm,
did. I don't know what happened. I can't report on HLPF, but really wasn't my best time because I think I
mhm.
was still trying to recover from COVID.
Yeah, and you shouldn't really push yourself too hard. No, you should allow time for your body to heal. And besides, HLPF will be there for several more years. It's not like we heard something new or different this time around. No, it's still the same old mantra. The SDGs are off track. We need to course correct. We need to fund the SDGs, etc., etc. So you didn't really miss much.
Yeah, and to be honest, there's a huge crowd following HLPF. They don't need me. But no, yeah, I was representing the FFD group, the mechanism, and we also don't have much to say. We had a speaker for Monday, the first day,
Mm-hmm.
and something happened. Yeah, there was a mess with the allocation of slots and stuff, so we even missed that slot. And our speaker also lost. She was trapped in Italy because of a flight issue. Anyway, so yeah,
Ah,
it was
so
very.
HLPF, to everyone who forgot already what this creature is, it's the high level political forum that happens every year to report progress on the achievement or the non achievement of the sustainable development goals, right? So it's gonna go until 2030. But
Yeah.
before that, there are many more big meetings that the UN is organizing, all in the hopes of, trying to inspire confidence and trust in the multilateral system, in the UN. And yeah, it's like year after year after year, there are super big conferences, no? I think this Secretary General really loves the limelight.
I can't wait for his term to end. But no, just to share a bit of gossip of what happened in New York. You know that
Yes.
we've mentioned this already that in New York there is this conversation on the possible new goals, new global goals. That given that there is this, of course, as you said, the SDGs will not be met. So in New York, they're trying to figure out then what's next? So there are some rumors that there will be a new negotiation of the global goals, and that this is why, for instance, the human rights rapporteur on poverty and human rights had been starting to engage in some conversations, broader conversations on then what's next, how would those
Mm.
global goals would look like, and from a point of view of a new economic alternative, and exploring what is there if the paradigm of growth will be hampering the feasibility of accessing the new goals.
Wait.
So
You mean on top of the SDGs or what comes after the SDGs?
this is about, since you say the SDGs will not be achieved in 2030, so then what's next? And so the UN is getting ready to start discussing the negotiation of the post 2030 goals, and they're calling them the new global goals. And these new global goals are it's an open question. Is that a continuation? Is that an extension of the SDGs?
Mm-hmm.
Will there be a new negotiation? And the question that the human rights rapporteur on poverty and human rights was asking is, if the sustainable development framework has one of the pillar as economic growth, and we know that economic growth is exponential and it is leading us to a path of destruction of the planet, then we should maybe not continue the SDGs under the paradigm of the Sustainable Development
Right,
Framework.
right. Mm-hmm.
And so then what are the economic alternatives? So there are many proposals, and it's just really starting a dialogue. And in the end, what came out was a report talking about beyond GDP, because GDP is measuring precisely a lot of the logics that the economic growth model or paradigm is proposing, and that has been showing that it's not a good measure to really say what is proper for the well-being of people on the planet. And on the other hand, um, also that it measures sectors that are really harmful, like weapons, the industrial, well, the fossil fuels, the industrial complex of all of the multilateral corporations that are really harming the world in many ways, and that is measured as positive, whereas care is not even considered, etc.
Yeah.
So the framework was beyond GDP, which is a very safe framework. To be honest, I was really more excited about the initial proposal of the human rights rapporteur, but I think he met obstacles along the way. Uh, anyway, beyond GDP is a very safe topic that even the Secretary General is talking about, whatever. But then, so that's the first point of entry, and I think that's a conversation we need to keep on having. And the second is, now that I was in HLPF, there were some meetings on opening up a new goal on structural racism. And
Hmm.
this is a proposal that is being led by Brazil and I think other countries. Um, but then it doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't make sense to me, because it's just including one goal, and that means opening up the SDGs just to include one goal, and that doesn't make like a lot of sense. Once you open one document, everything is
Yeah.
open,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would be very risky to do that in the terms of we just need to add one thing, when we know that structurally there are many things that are wrong with the SDGs.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So but still discussions are happening on that topic. And for instance, I've read also a paper. This is just a random proposal, this is not officially being discussed, but people were saying maybe we should also do a goal on the planetary boundaries. There are so many elements that are really at stake now. It's not just the climate goal. So then if we are really being serious about protecting the planet, then we should have a goal on the planetary boundaries. But then to me, again, it feels like, but who's going to follow up on that? HLPF. Are we gonna leave the planetary boundaries to HLPF? No, please. I would
Oh my
beg
gosh.
everybody to not go in that path. But anyway, if there is a new negotiation, which I would find it terrifying and horrible, we would have to see. But yeah, so those are the new talks in the hallways.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, I
I'm
see.
speechless. It's
It's
like,
horrible. I'm telling you.
it's like, hello, you can't even make this set
Uh,
of goals. You can't even achieve this set of goals. And then you want to add on more goals. And it's like totally disrespectful of the process, because we know that it's been a long 2 years negotiations just to come up with these 17 goals, right, with the open working group, etc., etc. And now that it's almost at the tail end of implementation, and they're all saying we're not achieving it, they still want to reopen this whole conversation.
I mean,
Really,
the talks are
Doris box,
happening,
no? Mm.
but but even if you, let's say this is not happening, they're not opening for a new just specific goal. The scary part for me is really the discussion of new goals, and that's, it seems again, of this secretary general who's horrible, who wants to start having another conversation on what is happening until, I don't know, let's say 2050, and then having a package of goals because they're under their realization that 2030 is not gonna hit it. But that is like, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thinking that the UN keep on postponing and then say, "Oh, this is so urgent," and then we're gonna renegotiate everything again. And as you say, is we're supposedly be on the implementation stage, but we know that it's filled with false solutions. That is actually at the heart, it has all of these proposals of PPPs, of public-private finance, the million to trillions that is bringing also again the World Bank and the IMF with their austerity measures, with their investment of mega
Mhm.
projects, etc. So at the heart of the SDGs, there is this technification, and it's similar as the Paris Agreement, the techno fixes that are actually making things worse. So the question is, are these the right path? I would say no. That's personally because the framing is totally wrong, even though in paper they sound nice. But I don't know what you think.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, all of these high level summits that the UN Secretary General is convening, it's taking up so much energy, it's costing a lot of resources. And for what? You hear nice sounding speeches from all of these heads of states. Of course, they will say the right stuff. But then once they get off the podium, once the news about their speech is done, what else? No, what happens concretely on the ground? Which is why next month there's going to be this big summit of the future, no? A lot of hype around it, because they say that, well, negotiations are already happening on this outcome document, which is called Pact for the Future. And it's not only one, no? It's supposed to be so inspirational that it will redefine international cooperation. It promises to be a once in a generation opportunity to redefine international cooperation, in the usual blah blah blah, in the spirit of solidarity, uh, renewed faith in multilateralism. So they will come out with three outcome documents. One would be this one on international cooperation. Another one is a global digital compact, and another one on youth. I think we've briefly touched on this, no, some episodes ago, when we had some friends already sharing their views about whether or not we are going to be excited and optimistic about the promises of the summit of the future. And as you said, it's the same old mantra. They really just want to make over stuff and put in more elements. Like this whole new thing about the global digital compact, no? How can artificial intelligence be used for the benefit of humanity, etc., when we all know that it's about the big tech companies uh, wanting to secure their stronghold on this information technology, no? So a lot of the neoliberal prescriptions are still being pushed and peddled even more aggressively. No, it's so. Such deceit. No, it really makes me angry that you can package such a horrible thing in a super nice, with a ribbon, with a lot of fanfare, but that doesn't make it right. So that's what will await us in September with this Summit of the Future. And
Yikes.
you're not going.
Oh
You're
no,
not going.
I don't find it inspirational or relevant at all. I think it's a waste of time. I've said that openly. Actually, the FFD group is saying this is a divestment of attention for the from the real thing.
Mm,
So
yeah.
we are really having a political position as a group, not necessarily as not all of the members agree, but as a group, we're saying this is not on our alley. And actually, now that you're saying about what is needed for an inspiring international
Mm,
cooperation, civil society in the FFT group is coming up with an amazing and inspirational proposal.
come on,
Because,
share, share.
well, you know how ODA, official development assistance, is horribly colonial and just disgusting, coming with conditionalities and very patronizing and stuff. And the commitments haven't even been met because there is
Mm,
this proposal of the 7% of the GDP of rich countries to deliver on what is called aid. I hate that
yeah.
word, but that's why I use official development assistance. And they never committed. So the new idea is to, and they started to present that in the meeting of the financing for development pre-conference that took
Mm,
place in Addis. So they started to roll this idea with member states. First, that there is an ODA debt by global north countries to the global south countries. It's like you had a commitment, you said you were going to pay, you haven't done so. And in that, the developing countries where you said you were going to pay, and then the developing countries made estimations and planning, and then you
mm-hmm.
didn't deliver. And so we couldn't deliver either. So it's your fault. So you owe us. So you need to pay. So, but this discussion on, besides the ecological debt and the historical debt that the North countries have, this issue of ODA debt is now being laid out on the table, and it will be one of the strongest proposals of the international cooperation agenda from civil society and social movements, which I really love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really a great idea, no?
So you're saying that there is now uh, this idea or this initiative to call out rich countries for failing to meet their aid commitments. We all know that, no? And that now constitutes an aid debt that they should pay.
ODA debt. Let's not use aid because
Mm, okay.
that is very colonial, right? That precisely misses the point. On this is how this is about international cooperation. They made commitments, they're failing. This is not aid. They're not helping us. This is actually their commitments, and so they need to fulfill their commitments. So this is ODA debt, precisely. Yeah,
Nice. I
I
like
love
how
that.
everything is converging into rich countries. You actually owe us, no?
You
Rich
suck.
countries, you
You,
should pay up.
yeah,
Whether it's climate debt, ecological debt, now it's ODA debt.
yeah,
Yes, that's nice. That's nice. They
yeah,
will have nightmares because coming from different CSO communities, we're all singing the same tune. You owe us, you pay us. No?
yeah.
And in the face of uh, this massive explosion of debt from developing countries, it's good that we are turning the tables around. That it is not the global south countries who owe rich countries, but it is actually the other way around. No? So all of this calls for, but let me just put it in perspective. Developing countries are saying, give us debt cancellation. That's for governments. But for movements and civil society, we're saying, you owe us, you pay up, right? So there's
Yeah.
kind of a difference, no?
And then the other point that civil society is bringing that I really, really love I'm actually more excited about this one than the ODA did, is
Okay.
that there's a proposal for a convention on reparations. I love that
Yay.
so much. I'm in love with that idea. And I'm so happy to be. I was in the room where the idea of calling for a convention for reparations was born. It's just magical. And we,
Nice.
because we're saying
What does this mean for everyone? Can you explain to us what is a convention on reparations? Why the need for one?
it's precisely this, right? Because the international cooperation framework has been very much focused on the notion of aid, which is, oh, we are the patronizing and condescending notion of we are developed countries. You need to follow our path and come
Mm-hmm.
through our, through our processes, through our economic paradigm. And it's like, no, this has been criminal on the global south. This has had horrible and massive effects against us. And all of these notions that you are mentioning, a larger debt that is the ecological, the economic, the historical, now the many. And
Yeah.
so we are framing those in terms of there is a reparation to happen. And so how would that look like? And it's not about money either. It's not that, oh, we need for you to give us 8% of whatever money. Is really about how are we envisioning this, including through the principles of reparations, of restitution, doing no harm, and even the
Mm-hmm.
to stop repeating the harm, and then addressing that from a structural point of entry, which is very much in line with the notion of right to development, because it's again like what is the path that developing countries need to have, like the global south. And of course that aligns with the right to development in all of the agendas. And so we said that first, that we need to monitor more closely the convention of right to development that you are following up
Yes.
in a very isolated manner. So we definitely are more interested, not more interested, very much interested in understanding how's the process and what is happening. We know it's
Mm-hmm.
also, it doesn't receive a lot of support, but we think that this is a key process. And then in alignment with that, understanding that international cooperation should be framed on right to development and reparations. And those are the core principles. And therefore that's the agenda we're gonna be start to push from the international cooperation angle. So I find that more inspiring than the summit of the future or the
Of
pact for the future or
course.
whatever, right? I'm telling you.
I know.
I'm telling
But
you.
in fairness, okay, I I will be at the summit of the future, but
You are.
not to cheer those governments, not to cheer on the UN Secretary General with their nice speeches, but we are going to be there and present, precisely talking about the shortcomings of the Pact for the Future and why the right to development is the way to go. So that's what I'm gonna be focusing on when I go to New York next month. It's about getting civil society into a conversation and trying to um, you know demystify. I think a lot in civil society are still enamored with the Pact for the Future, and they're still they're in denial, or maybe they're just they're romantics. They still have that faith, no, that it will deliver. So let's try to demystify the Pact for the Future, and I think it's our political duty to really show them what the Pact for the Future really is and why it's going to fail, why it's not going to deliver on the structural changes that we want and that we need. And there is something, though, within the same UN system that could offer a better alternative. And that is this discussions now pushing for a covenant on the right to development. No, it's not just an agreement, but the idea is a covenant, meaning it's going to be up there, in the same level as the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, the economic, social, and political rights. So it's going to be at that level that people, whether individual or collectives, have the right to development. So I think that's nice.
It is really nice, and well, I think we should organize a meeting, just maybe a webinar on right to development, and hearing
Mm-hmm.
from all of these points of entry. There is a very limited understanding of what is the right to development. Also, between social movements, the climate movement says, "Oh, this is very regressive because everybody should leave the fossil fuels in the ground." But we need to talk about fair shares. We need to talk about
Yep.
CDR, the common and differentiated responsibilities, and that is all
Mm-hmm.
there, recognized in international agreements. So I think there is a false interpretation of right to development and being harmful for humanity, whereas actually it's the opposite. It's these are just really false solutions that are in the air, where there are many grounded principles and proposals that are really
Mm-hmm.
tackling the structural unequal exchange, the international division of labor, etc., and of course the colonial and imperial impacts that we're still having nowadays. And so, yeah, we should devote some time just to talk about right to development and reparations linked together.
Yeah, I think it's about time that we again go deep into all of these things, no, not just touching them by the surface, because there's really
Yeah,
a lot to unpack about all of these high tech, high level meetings. Because apart from the pack for the future, we are entering now the preparatory phase for the financing for development conference, not the fourth one
yeah.
happening next year. And I think, Emilia, you've been quite engaged in that, no? So
Yeah.
why do we need to get excited with the FFD4 conference again?
Not sure excited is the best word, but no, just let
Hmm.
me let me finalize what I was gonna say on the Pact for the Future, because you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the Global Digital Compact. We have a
Yeah.
draft. It was a very contending conversation, super tough. And in the end, I went through the document, and there is no dimension of, yes, really tackling the corporations, but also not on the environmental dimension at all, which is very concerning, because they keep on talking about, oh yeah, the three pillars, but in the end they're not even doing that. So then what's the point of the sustainable development framework that they supposedly are aligning with if there is no environmental dimension? So it's still again
Mm-hmm.
growth, 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 the economic dimension, and then it's still harming humanity. And just for people to understand, why is it that I'm against growth? Because we get this question, right? Growth is not linear. This is a technical notion, and this means that we're wanting to limit the dimension of growth that is exponential. Is that three, then nine, then it's really bad. So when we say that there is an exponential growth, what we're talking is that if all of the humanity would consume as the global north, by 2050 we would need 9 planets to really fulfill that. So it's really about an exponential logic that is exhausting the limits and the capacity of our planet, and we cannot do that. And we also cannot pretend that we will have a paradigm or economic framework in which the global north will keep on growing, exploiting and murdering the lives in the global south, because they just want to see that this is a white supremacist view, right? Like Eurocentric view, like a northern centric view, that all of the lives are presentable, but theirs. And also within the global north, they have these racial sacrifice zones. And so for just a few of the humanity to continue in what they call prosperity, while they're really harming key ecosystems and sources of life. I don't know how to call them. It's really dire. So people need to understand that when we're talking about growth, we're not talking about an immediate element as, oh, we see growth, oh, you have to grow as a person. No, this is not about that. This is a technical term that is really harmful. And so this is why the growthers have said that this is actually an ideology like fascism. Like, you get enamored with an idea and then you defend it, and it's a criminal idea. It's a some degrowthers call it self-consuming growth. It's like, it's really uh, killing us internally, and but we keep with that obsession. So I think this is why proposals like from the human rights rapporteur on poverty and human rights is really important, because it's inviting us to look at a different economic paradigm. And okay, well, that leads me again maybe to the FFD process, because again, that is where the discussion on the international, the reform of the global financial architecture is happening, right? And of course, everybody talks about that. Even the wealthy countries talk about the reform of the international financial architecture, but they mean really is to give more power to the World Bank, to the IMF, which are their lackeys, you know. It's like they want to operate for them so that they can promote more of their own private investment in our territories for their own extraction, to bring our more austerity measures, to bring more mega projects, including fossil fuels and weapons and all of that. So for us, the reform of the global financial architecture means an entirely different thing. So that is the opportunity that the FFD brings us. So we really want to focus on that, and everything else, such as the Pact for the Future, we think it's a distraction.
But how was the first prep com meeting? Was it? I understand that since it's the first meeting, it's a lot of stock taking. No, where are we now? 10 years. Has it been 10 years ago since Addis Ababa? The FFD3 conference, and it's not only a question of stock taking, but also analyzing where are we, how did we get here, but also some visioning for the future. So, is it something that you got excited about, or you know,
I
should we
mean,
engage?
Everybody should monitor and engage. I think it's really important. But also at the same time, we were having the discussion in New York about the TORs, the terms of reference of the tax convention, the UN tax convention. So the team of the FFD civil society was split somewhere in New York, somewhere in Addis Ababa. And it was very inspiring to see in the end the hard work that was done by the tax justice community paid off in the end with a strong TOR that will be the guidelines for the next negotiation on more substantive issues on a tax convention in the UN. So that was very inspiring, and at the same time, it inspires us, for instance, to call for a similar process for the debt crisis, right? That we need uh, UN mechanism that is following in the same line of the UN tax convention on the debt crisis, and rather than leave it to the tension of powers, right? The lenders versus the owing countries, is really to lead it to a universal space that is really assessing with fairness the debt crisis. And so that was one of the major demands. And but also the very much the environmental and ecological dimension was present across the entire debate. And you keep on hearing the discourses on private finance is going to save us, but on the other end, there was a lot of proof by civil society and other actors in saying that privatization has not led us to where we wanted. It hasn't even thrown in the money that everybody promises that there will be. So it's really insane. So again, challenging privatization and the primacy of private finance. And from our end, we want to talk about the primacy of public finance, etc. So the FFD agenda is really broad. It comprehends public, international, and national finance, private, international, and public and national finance, trade, debt, tax. Technology, data, etc. So it's a really key agenda. Systemic issues and such as monetary issues. So it's really a very comprehensive agenda. I think we should organize also another webinar on financing for development and what are what is the revamped FFD process that we would like, so that people would get engaged. But it was really a good start. And then there will be, as a pathway, there will be a meeting in New York in October, 28th of October, as a stock take for civil society and movements. Sorry. I
Stand
think
that
that will be
now
important.
there's a call for contribution or submissions for an elements paper, no? um of course, I know that a lot of the um NGOs that are closely following the FFD process would be making the submission for the elements paper. But do you think it would make sense if, you know, uh, smaller organizations, not really the technical or the professional NGOs, should also be, would it be worth their while to try and submit an elements paper in their own language or in their own vision of what the FFD should be doing for, you know, the ordinary people, not the technocrats, not the professional lobbyists?
Um, I think you're being a bit harsh in describing the FFD people as technocrats. Um, really, there are many organizations that are monitoring this process.
Mm,
Of course, there are technical people, but also there are many organizations who know that their lives are at stake and that they are really interested in monitoring this process. There is a mechanism, and the mechanism has different work streams, and all organizations, even however small, they can join all of the work streams and then submit their own views so that these are collective views that are shared. So I'm guessing there will not be just one submission. I'm guessing beyond the bigger picture, the different work streams on tax, on trade, on debt, on technology, on ecological finance, etc., will be submitting things, and people can very much are welcome to join those working groups so that we also bring collective voices rather than individual and isolated ones. But yeah,
yeah.
you're right. There's going to be this elements paper, and there will be a first negotiation on these elements um, in the first week of December, which is for me posing a very huge question because it's at exactly the same date than AWIT Forum. I
Ah,
don't know for
yeah.
so it's Bangkok, New York. The feminist movement, the horrible World Bank and the IMF and the so it's like I guess for me the decision is really made. I want to be more in David Forum than in the FFG negotiation. We will be still. I'm not needed. There's a huge crowd of people there, but it is not a good sign that the feminist movement will be in Bangkok and not in New York, right? But anyway,
Mm.
that's another conversation. The feminist
That's
movement with the
another
FFG. Let's
conversation.
not go there.
Why aren't the feminists at this FFD negotiations?
Let's not
So,
go there.
so there's going to be a lot of meetings to prepare for the big FFD conference next year, no?
Yeah,
Aside from the one in New York, in October, there's going to be one in December and
December
another one in February
in New York as well.
in New York. So it's so New York centric. It's so
Yeah,
too
but it's the
difficult to
no,
access.
but it's the other way around because what was seen in others was that many countries, especially developing countries, had problems in getting there, and it is expected that it will be the same if there is another pre-conference in Mexico. Then governments will not have the capacity to be there. So it's really in the best interest of developing countries of the global south that it happens in New York because they have a mission, they have permanent representatives, they have people with awareness. Of course, for us as civil society, we would like better to have people from capitals or more of a mixed bunch of people who understand in a different manner the agendas than the usual
Yeah,
New York
yeah.
negotiators. But on the other end, for fairness, it will ensure that every country, no matter however small, they will have a representation in the negotiation because they already have someone there. So that's what's in the end the major criteria to really try to prioritize the presence of developing countries.
Now that you mention that, it makes sense. No, it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of negotiations again in New York.
In New York, yeah, but for me, yeah, I think I'm skipping December. I really want to be with my crowd. The David Forum has not happened in a long time because with the year it was meant to happen, there was a pandemic in between. So that is really our global feminist space, you know? There's a huge debate about women deliver. We've talked about it. It is my view that it's a corporate space, and it's actually the opposite. We, as feminists, need to take over that, and we are very grateful for some feminists colleagues of ours who are there in the committees internally trying to shape that up. But until they achieve that, We know that is not our feminist space, it's not our safe space. That will be the AWID Forum. It's going to happen in Bangkok in December, the first week, starting from 2 to 4 or 5. It's
Yeah.
exactly the same dates as the FFD meeting. I'm going to be in Bangkok with my crowd, healing my wounds. I really need to be with my feminist crowd. And so I hope I'll see you there, and Rina and all of us there. Let us know if you're who's coming to Bangkok.
So we said that the Spice Girls will be at the AWID Forum, right? Let's try to make it happen. Let's try to
We
make it
will
real.
we will have a session, the Despise Girls special. And we don't know, we still need to think about how would that look like. I mean, we have, as people know, the Rise Up series, which is
Mm.
a very exciting animated series of content that is discussing many structural issues produced by the Campaign of Campaigns. We have the climate change, the care economy, the against privatization, the latest on degrowth and the responsibility of global north in destroying the world.
The
Is
Wild
really,
Wild
really good.
West.
That is so good. So
Mm.
people, just we're inviting you all to watch our Rise Up series. And we could also play some segments of the new plays that we have two plays, one on drowning in debt that was done by the Renas Chulas. It's a feminist satire on debt and was launched last year. And this year we just launched yesterday another play, another satire on trade. It was just remarkable. So
Nice. Can
we
we
will
show
share
it
it.
here in one of the next episodes?
It's an hour long, so we'd rather, what we should be doing is sharing the links so that people can access
Mm.
it. It's free access our YouTube channel, the Campaigns of Campaigns channels. So people feel free to watch, to use. It's really amazing materials. When we have shown it to real activists on all of these issues, they have shown so moved that some of them were moved to tears. And it's like, finally, you're portraying
Oh.
my struggles. I feel so alone and isolated. But this is really raising awareness on why it's so important for everybody to follow these agendas. So yeah, we will share the links, and those are just ideas. We need to think about what the Spice Girls can do to storm the AV forum.
Of course, we'll think of something that is something that we haven't done before, no? Maybe
Yeah,
we
we
should
should.
organize a brainstorm.
We should. If you have
Rina,
any
we need
suggestions,
you.
yes. Where are you, Rina? Oh, Rina said she was in a meeting on digital justice. What was technique? Yeah. So Rina is not here because she's doing amazing, important things.
Yeah, but maybe the next time we'll make sure that all three the Spice Girls
Yeah,
are present.
we
No, it's been a
we
while.
tried really hard. It
It's
just
been a
hasn't been
while.
able to be possible. But anyway, yeah, yeah, yeah. And what about the COP? That painful topic. Are you going to Baku? What are the preparations? What has happened? And you've been also following the loss and damage process. So let us know what's the latest updates.
Yes, the COP 29. Can you believe it? It's COP 29 already. It's happening in the first 2 weeks of November in Baku, Azerbaijan. Um, it it's going to be a relatively important COP, no, as if not all COPs are important, but this one is specifically important because it's going to be a finance COP. The new collective goal on climate finance will be agreed and adopted at this meeting, and so that will now determine what would be the the total amount, no, the that needs to be raised in terms of resources that would help countries do their climate action, whether it's mitigation, lowering greenhouse gas emissions, adaptation, or the more important one of addressing loss and damage. So this new climate finance goal will be the key piece for COP 29, but then there are many other negotiation tracks. So what are the preparations? We know that the host is not the best country to be with in terms of civil society, in terms of inclusion and spaces. So we are going to try again to put all our creative energies together on how we can still have that spirit of resistance, no? In a COP. We've done it before. I think that's the beauty of the activist community, no? Put us in the most repressive of spaces, but we still manage to push the limits, to push the boundaries, no? You're laughing, Emilia, because we know all the things that we've done, no? You even taking a video of the security detail. Was it in Egypt? Yeah, it was in Egypt, no? So we organized our counter espionage missions to assert our right to speak out and have our voices heard. So I think COP29 will be similar in terms of the risks that activists, that critical voices will be facing. Although the COP presidency, Azerbaijan, is also saying that this will be a COP of peace. I don't know what they mean by COP of peace, no, but and how they will implement that. But I'm almost afraid.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna make a parenthesis because, as you say, social. One thing is the official conferences and stuff, but the other is that social movements, organized civil society, have their own logic, and we are really trying to organize ourselves and try to show up for the real things. And just wanted to announce that, well, maybe just to share, right? Because what we're this is what we're doing here, the Despise Girls sessions, that there will be a meeting organized by the Fight Inequality Alliance and many other colleagues, such as I think Femne, Akina Mama, I'm sorry, if Akina Mama, the Tax Justice Network Africa, ITUC, Oxfam, Greenpeace, I'm missing some, I'm sorry. But many great colleagues of ours are going to organize a meeting in Manila, that is some sort of a global assembly of economic alternatives, or of alternatives, really. And it's really trying to gather a movement of movements, and to not live isolated. It's very similar to the efforts we're doing in the campaign of campaigns, and many of all of us who are trying to bridge the gap between different spaces and trying to unify the demands and strengthen our collective efforts. So this will be a meeting in Manila from September, I think it's 4th to 7th. And so I will be there. I will finally see Manila. I've never been there. But it's really very inspiring to, first of all, to see you and meet your family, I hope. But also, for sure, having this gathering of movements. And I'm guessing a lot of the things in preparations also for all of these processes that are happening will go through in an informal manner, because the strength is in what the movement decides and not necessarily what the UN is telling us to do. And that is very much needed in a times like this.
So happy to welcome you in Manila, Philippines. We'll make it
Yeah,
happen, Emilia, even if I'm just returning from somewhere else.
I know. I can. It would be horrible that I'm visiting your city and you're, in Brussels or in Geneva.
Yeah. But we'll make it happen. And I also wanted to share with you, um, it's still in the beginning phases, no? In the inception phase. There are also some ideas now for a global campaign to call for a 10% reduction in military spending and put it for climate finance. So I've just had an initial meeting yesterday, and this is an idea that has been put forward by some of the Nobel laureates. No, that everywhere we know that it's the military industrial complex who is benefiting from this huge automatic appropriations for military in our national budgets. It's being used to protect foreign investments. It's being used to, violate our people's rights, grab our lands. So there are now some discussions if a global campaign that would call for disarmament and redirecting military budgets for climate finance would take off or could take off. So we're not yet there. It's still being conceptualized. But I think it's an exciting initiative that could be the start of something. No?
I mean, I don't like it. I'm
You don't
sorry.
like it?
No,
Why? Mm,
it's the same as there is this campaign for the 2%. The multi-billionaires pay 2%
mm.
of their
A
of
global
their
wealth
wealth.
tax. No? Yeah.
Yeah, their wealth tax. And so on, they said they won't even feel it, they won't even feel a scratch. And so, but with that, a lot of money, that is so much money that we could pay for health education and
Mm,
equality and climate finance. And I find, like, are you listening to yourself? Do you know the harm that multi-billionaires are doing in the planet? That they're consuming the 70% of excess carbon in the world. They're gonna run out of the remaining carbon budget for the entire planet Earth to live. And we're just saying we're not even gonna touch you. It's like, no, we need to eradicate them from Earth. We cannot just say, oh, we're just barely gonna touch it. Are you listening to yourself? You're prioritizing money and not a real system change. You just want to get more money, pretending that money is going to help with the problem, when the root of the problem are like the military industrial complex, the multi-billionaires. So no, I don't accept that. I don't
mm,
agree with those proposals. Yes, they should pay, but we also should dismantle them, and we should be telling them very seriously, it's unlike they're doing, you will barely scratch you. No, we're after you. You are criminals. And we are going to do everything in our power. And this precisely because this is not about money. This is a different system change, a different paradigm. So we cannot keep on telling them, yes, and you have been so good that even with your money, like, no, it's the same with the
mm-hmm.
military complex. We cannot just say, oh, just give us 10% and you keep on murdering people like in
Yeah,
Gaza.
that's true.
We cannot say, like in Congo, like there, Sudan, there are so many places. And even my own region with the organized crime, just precisely with the excess of weapons that is just benefiting the elites that just want to keep on profiting from these harmful sectors. We need to say stop. And whatever else, I don't like these estimations of just 2%, just 10%, because it really misses the point on what is the
Mm-hmm.
transformation that we need. And it just focusing again on money, when the non-monetized dimension, or the other elements and components like human rights, decency, equality, it's totally left out of the conversation.
Thank you for giving me a bitch slap. No, as I told you, it's just in the earliest inception phases. No, so yesterday I was talking to some of the colleagues who initiated it. I was telling them there's a need to have a decolonial lens. No, precisely because you said it's not just about the money. You really have to appreciate the historical roots. No, because they said. I was asking them, are you principally calling on the global north or everyone to reduce 10%? They said all governments. I said that's not gonna fly. That's not gonna fly because you have to um, put it in perspective that it's the global north because of colonialism, etc., etc., that we in the global south we have huge police and military and paramilitary forces servicing the interests of foreign investments, etc., etc. So it's like, okay, we need to have a much bigger conversation than just trying to excite people that if you call for a 10% reduction and redirection of military spending, then that then they could sleep soundly at night, not to put it bluntly. that
And
won't cut it.
no, but the thing is also that the root of this thing is imperialism. Like you were in Sanam's presentation on a webinar. Please all go and watch that webinar. Was amazing. The presentation of Sanam Sanai's latest papers. But Sanam was making the point that there are 170 military bases of the
Mm,
US around the world. So who's really profiting from that industrial complex, and for what purposes? That is the US and an imperial project of Western countries to really appropriate the autonomy and sovereignty of the global South people. So this is more than the industrial military complex. It's like the purpose of why it's happening and whom are benefiting and who
yeah,
are being harmed. And so imperialism cannot be detached from a conversation on the industrial complex. And furthermore, it's not about the money. It's again like, if we are not going to dismantle imperialism, then why are we saying, oh, we want 10% of the money of the arms trade? It's like it
mm,
really is about, you want the money, you want the divestment, but then we leave the 90 remaining percent of the imperial power
and that
to
makes it
continue,
okay, no?
right? So it's just, I think we need to think more of these type
Yeah,
of premises. But I would say it's really important that we're starting to have this conversation seriously, and that we think these are the harms, these are the sources of the harm, then how are we gonna really tackle this at the source? And a lot of the people in the tax justice hate me because I'm saying stop it with that, and they say no, it's very hard even to get the 2%. And they say that with that there will come many technical points of entry like country by country reporting and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, get the country by country reporting, get all of that. We don't need to say, and we're saving the multi-billionaires while we're doing that. We don't need to say that. And I've been saying the tax justice movement needs to talk more about justice, less about tax. It's not about tax, it's not important, but what is the logic in which we need to have also a framework of transformation, system change, an economic paradigm that is serving people and the planet, and not
mm-hmm.
just the capital. I think that's a key question. I'm very respectful of the tax justice movement. They achieved great things. It's just an invitation to take a step further, and all of us should be part of those conversations.
And take advantage that people are actually talking about tax, etc. No, this is the
Weapons, the
moment.
industrial weapons industry, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a
Definitely.
good change. It's blowing in the wind. No, the
Yeah.
answer, my friend, it's blowing in the wind. We're not there yet, and there are lots of hurdles that we need to overcome, because as you said, some of the proposals are barely scratching the surface. It's so reformist conservative that
Mm,
it's also preserving the status quo, when in
mm,
fact as feminists we say we want system change. No,
yeah.
what does it really mean to push for systemic changes when it comes to taxes, when it comes to issues around demilitarization? So maybe we need to unpack all of those things. No, maybe that's
Yeah.
another idea for a rise up video. No.
Yeah. No, and as you say, the good thing is that the discussions are happening. Things
Yep.
that in the past were like, oh, I'm just a peace and security expert, or I'm just interested in this topic, or I'm just
Mm,
a tax geek. People is talking about it. So as you say, this is the best moment.
yes, there's
Yes.
hope, my dear.
There is hope. There is always hope in the movements and in the territories. That's what
Of
gets us
course, of
going. Yeah.
course.
My dear, can you believe it? It's been an hour. And we also had a list of things we wanted to talk about. The annual meetings are going to happen in October in the IMF and the World Bank, that we will leave that for another day. So many things, but we needed just to start these conversations
Yes,
again.
we do. But before we go, I just want to flag that on September there will be a global week of action for climate
Yes,
finance and
yes,
a fossil free future. So organizations, groups can also do their own, not to contribute to this global campaign. So mark the dates, September 14 to 20, during the time of the Summit of the Future. We want a fossil free future.
definitely.
All
Definitely.
right.
Thank you so much, my dear. Thank you so much for the audience. Hopefully, We need to do a session in Manila, Tete. It's mandatory. And then, if
Let's
so,
do
we
it.
will see you very soon.
Ah,
Okay, thank you,
okay.
people. Thank you, Tete. Gracias, Denise.
Thank you, Denise.
Ciao.